Kool-Aid, you want some heat from Ed O'Neill?
Yeah.
How about a little bit of some subtle heat?
Let's go.
Thank you for the donation, by the way. Ed, he says, Brandon's bias about the Pistons is what Easy says about us golf lovers.
No.
Thoughts?
Brandon's bias about the Pistons. I don't even know how I'm biased about the Pistons, though.
It may be, maybe that's a key word in there. Like
I picked them to win 29 games at the start of the season. I didn't say
I picked 32. I picked 32.
I said if it's catastrophic injury, you're going to see sub-20s. They had the catastrophic injury, and that's on record. I said that on Woodward night, sitting in that chair that Matthew Broder's in right now. And that's exactly what happened. They had the catastrophic injury. They won sub-20 games. And even at best, I thought 29. I said, do I want to see them throw down the gauntlet to try and win 35 if everything goes perfect?
All right.
Sure. Why not push for more? Why not try and put yourself in a position to make the play-in? But in terms of what I actually thought they would do, I thought they would still be pretty bad.
And look what we debating about 35 wins.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, I don't care about
horrible, man.
I liked what Troy Weaver brought to the table, and I think what people hate is that I don't just go and say, you know what? Off with his head. I'm never going to be that when this organization has proven to be the biggest common denominator, and people, no matter what their resumes are beforehand, coming here and then looking nothing like they did before. I'm seeing a bunch of other people who have wins, winning awards all across the league, or having other people talk about how good they are. They get to the Pistons, and all of a sudden, it's just their fault. SVG was a good coach and a good basketball mind before he got here.
Yeah.
Troy Weaver, the same thing. Dwayne Casey, the same thing. There's one common denominator here, and that's what I'm always going to focus on. Arn Teleman's been here in this team for a while. There's been some positives. There's been some negatives.
A lot of negatives.
Yeah, but overall, for me personally, it's just about holding the organization to a brand new standard. I can't keep seeing people come in here and all of the press releases and all the basketball minds in the world are saying, this is the perfect hire. That's what they said about Troy. You couldn't find somebody that said this pick, this hire was not it. Trajan Langdon, the same thing. Now we can only hope, realistically, that the organization does right by him.
Yeah. You know what this sound like? SOP. Same old Pistons.
Could be.
Same old Pistons.
Could be.
I actually agree with that.
And all of my optimism about Trajan Langdon, I am prepared for it to be ruined. I am. I 100% am.
He's kind of set up to fail. I mean, we got to just be real. He has a better chance of failing than actually finding a way to turn
Based
this
on the
mess
track
around.
record, you're right.
Like, yeah.
Where have we seen track record rise in the last 15 years that the front office and that the organizational structure has been one to actually put these people in position to succeed? We just haven't had it. Now, as an owner, Tom Gores, I believe, has gotten better over time. He's opened up that checkbook. He will pay for what he thinks is the best, but that just means that now your basketball room around you has to be one that's leading you down the right aisle to spend the right money. It can't just be, you know what, that car looks good over there, but it's really a clunker.
Yeah.
That's what's happening right now. He's spending the bread, but who's advising him?
I think Trajan Langdon's resume was a little better than Troy Weaver's was, and that's kind of my hope. I think it's a little bit better than Dwayne Casey's and Monty Williams's was, and that's just my opinion. You can disagree all you want, but it may not matter. I'm prepared for it to not matter because, you know, if there's some inside forces that have been at play for a while, they could derail this too. I'm 100% prepared for that.
Look, I'm going to be optimistic, and maybe that's something that people don't like. But if, you know, beforehand, I liked Trajan Langdon. I liked what the New Orleans Pelicans were doing. We've talked about him on this show before. I like Willie Green. I like him more than probably Monty Williams right now.
Yeah.
I like the structure. Health has been something that's been a big downturn to kind of keeping the Pelicans back from achieving what I believe they could. But I like what's going on there. And whether he's the one calling the shots or not, if he was somebody involved with it, if he's somebody that's learning, if he's somebody that doesn't have an ego to the point that he can say, you know what, I can replicate these things. The good and the positives that I learned along the way, I can add that to my tool bag. If he's that guy and he's getting the power to be able to do this stuff, then I'm going to be optimistic about it.
And as I've said before, I think the New Orleans Pelicans are a well-run organization. I think the only thing that has stopped them from, at the very worst, being a team that has consistently over the past few years gotten the 4 seed and won a playoff series to at most maybe even representing the West in the finals is injuries. And like Zion Williamson, how could you account for him being maybe the most injured player in NBA history? A guy like Brandon Ingram didn't have an injury history until he came to New Orleans. Same with CJ McCollum. It's just injuries have derailed this team.
And I see Matthew Kruger. He says, stop building around Cade and start winning games. Cade's close. Cade's a bum. He's had 3 years. He can't get it done. Ship him out of town. I mean, honestly, wake me up when they've built around Cade.
Yeah.
They just haven't done that yet.
And he's had 2 years.
It's a team full of young players and hobbled vets, and I'm going to continue to say that. Every year, the vets they thought they could depend on, other than Jeremy Grant, have been supremely injured. Period. Yeah. Like they haven't had anything. Bojan every year. Alec Burks. What are we doing?
Is it too early to have the conversation or ask the question? Will Cade be a better player as the number 2 or the 1B, as the Jalen Brown on a winning team? Is it too early to go there?
I think it depends on how you denote 1B and all that, because Cade is always going to be one of those players who the drink goes away, he stirs it. That's just how, even if there's a guy who's a better scorer or a better ISO player or a better clutch player, he's always one of those guys who's going to be a connector, somebody that pulls it together, just the same way we saw with like a Chauncey Billups type. So that is his style of play. That's the style of effect he can have on the game, but you want to be able to have some talent around him, and sometimes that might mean he's not the lead or focal point from a scoring standpoint. And honestly, Cade Cunningham has talked about the fact that he doesn't really care about being the number 1 scorer on the team. Obviously, he cares about winning, but he says he likes to be able to set up his players more. When we were in that draft cycle, we did a lot of breakdown on who Cade Cunningham was as a player, and we noticed the same thing that Isaiah Thomas did when he first entered the league. They're probing point guards who like to try and set up their teammates first. If you're in that starting lineup with them, it doesn't matter what the proficiency or what the numbers or what the fans or what the outside noise says. He's looking to be able to get you basically in position to have success as an offensive player. And defensively, he tries to play all over the place, even though he does have some work to do in that regard. But overall, I think he's just one of those guys that you have to have in the mix. He's going to always have the ball in his hands a large portion of the time, but you got to pair him up with some scores.
Yeah,
you got to.
And I guess it's going to be like a Cade and Pistons segment. While we're at it, this is something that I never have gotten the chance to do. I'm going to defend Cade Cunningham and give you like the real picture of what he was working with this year, as opposed to even what Jaden Ivey was working with the year before. The year before with Jaden Ivey, Bojan played 59 games and was a 20-point-per-game guy on 40% shooting. The next year, the combination of Bojan and Fontecchio played 43. The previous year, Alec Burks played more games and shot a better percentage than he did this year with Cade Cunningham. Last year with Jaden Ivey, Isaiah Livers was a solid role player. This year with Cade Cunningham, he was unplayably terrible. Right. Last year with Jaden Ivey, you had almost a full season of Saddiq Bey, who is better than who they traded him for, and James Wiseman, that's what Cade Cunningham had to work with. Look at some of those games last year where Jaden Ivey won it for them. There were some really, really good Saddiq Bey games. Did he get cold as ice sometimes? Absolutely. But
he's young.
That's the thing. Saddiq Bey was better for this team than James Wiseman has been, and nobody would debate that.
Yes,
even a guy like Hamidou Diallo. And if you want to like snicker at Hamidou Diallo, he was solid, a solid vet who they had last year that they didn't have this year. So anybody talking about so that's what you're talking about when it comes to like vets that Cade couldn't depend on that the previous year they could. Even a guy like Monty Morris, he didn't play. He didn't play.
Gosh, he didn't play.
He didn't play like at all. So
it's frustrating, and he wanted to be here too.
If people want to talk about Cade and how he's like not a winner, or Matthew Kruger's calling him a bum, a lot of those guys that you thought that you could count on for this year that actually played well the previous year with Jaden Ivey were not that this year for the Detroit Pistons. So that's my ultimate defense of Cade and why it should never, ever, 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 ever be turned over to just Jaden Ivey.
Now let's stick here.
Flannel.
Yes.
Sam.
Yes.
Man.
Thank you.
Right. Round
that was brilliant. Like it was. I mean, it's everything that I feel like I know, especially, it's partly my job to watch every game.
Yeah.
To watch it again, to listen to everything they're saying in person, to go back and listen to all of the footage, all of the press conferences, but to have it from somebody who's actually looking at the game as well from a different perspective, and to be able to explain it in the way that you did, it was perfect.
I appreciate that. And just for the record, I want to kind of answer your question too, Broder, talking about how Cade as maybe a number 2.
Or 1B.
Or 1B. We talked about Zach LaVine yesterday on our layup line, and you talked about him in that hypothetical trade. If you look back just a couple of years, you know who Zach LaVine and the team had a lot of success playing next to? Lonzo Ball. I'm not, and I'll tell you what, Cade Cunningham is better than Lonzo Ball, but they're both those like big point guards who can distribute, who don't always want to take the shot.
Flannel's spitting right
I'm
now,
just
bro.
saying the Cade Cunningham, Zach LaVine fit could be seamless, and we all know that like a Brandon Ingram fit would be more than seamless.
That's why, you know what? I'm getting as excited as Rod. Like if that was a deal on the table, where do I gotta go outside right now? Right now.
Well, I agree 100% with Rod Beard that like make it happen.
Yeah, make it happen. Make it happen. Man, you know what? I didn't even know that this segment was gonna pop up. Shout out to Broder for posing that question at the beginning of the segment as well. Yeah, shout out to Broder for putting together this wonderful prep and for us to just be like, Lion stuff. We don't need to talk about that. Right. But we'll get to that tomorrow. Yep.
The chat was you guys were buzzing. It was a very exciting day of a show, and I appreciate you guys for staying engaged.
Yep, we got to cook up, but do we got some business to take care of first, brother?
Yeah, we got Soroki's.
All right. Hey, we already know Soroki's is cooking up. We already know.
Them tenders, oh my God.
I love those tenders.